Well, I have to congratulate Michael because I don't think that in the 5 previous volumes anyone has ever asked us for less time. So that's good. Our next presenter is Kael Alford.
Yeah.
Kael is a documentary photographer, writer, and journalist born in Middletown, New York. Since 1971. She does it a day over 1980. She takes an immersive and long-term approach to the subjects she reports, including political conflict, underrepresented communities, cultural identity, and human relationship to the natural environment. Kael began her career covering culture and conflict in the Balkans and the Middle East for European and American newspapers and magazines from 1996 to 2005. Her photography was about the impact of the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq and Iraqi civilians, is widely exhibited and included in the book Unembedded for Independent Photojournalists on the War in Iraq. She will return to Iraq this summer to follow up on that project. She's also documenting Native American communities on the coast of Louisiana facing dislocation due to massive coastal erosion and the environmental impacts of the oil and gas industries. That work will be exhibited at the High Museum in Atlanta on July 2012. Alford takes photography assignments, lectures, and writes about her work. She teaches at the annual Foundry Photo Workshop and will be teaching photography at SMU in the fall. She holds a BA in literature, an MA in journalism from the University of Missouri, and was a Nieman Fellow at Harvard University in 2008-2009. Alford is represented by Panos Pictures in London and lives in Dallas, Texas. Please welcome Kael Alford.
Sorry, that bio was way too long, but this won't be. So I think of myself as a self-assigning photojournalist that's trying to survive in a post-print world. So I'm going to talk to you about my next self-assignment, which is to return to Iraq after 8 years of being away. And I'll talk to you about the perspective that I took when I was in Iraq the first time and try to talk you through the story I'm doing there. I was unembedded, which means when I traveled in Iraq in 2003 and 2004, I didn't travel with U.S. troops. I spent time among Iraqi civilians. And I tried to show what the world looked like from their perspective. So I wasn't behind, armored vehicle walls. I was sort of traveling among the people in Iraq. I want to go back to Iraq after 8 years. Now that I'm sort of settled in Dallas, I have a home here. There's a lot of time has passed in my life, but I keep thinking about these people I met back 8 years ago. So I'm going back to find them. And I've gotten some funding for this. It's a grant fund that's given me the money to do this. And I'm going back to find these locations, these physical locations, and these individuals if I can find them again. I don't know, it's going to be a challenge. For example, I want to find the street corner outside of the U.S. Embassy where this demonstration happened in 2004. It kind of looks like Egypt, so it's interesting. So this work is really about physical perspective. I want my physical perspective to be close to the civilians in Iraq, not necessarily close to U.S. soldiers, because I feel like that's what we see really so often in the American media, if we hear about Iraq at all. So I'll go back to this emergency room, for example, where this boy lost his mother and his brother and his sister. Here's a father who lost his children and his mother. Sorry, this is heavy stuff after what we've seen tonight, but I think it's important. And I'd like to just find this place and see how these doctors are coping now, how this emergency room is coping after it's been looted terribly after the war. And in some cases, so people have lost everything. They've lost their children, they've lost their homes, they've left the country. And I'm going to go back with these photographs. In some cases, I'll just show them around the neighborhood and say, do you recognize these two guys? Do you recognize the parents of this child? And can you point me to their house? Can you find them again? It's kind of an experimental approach to photojournalism for me. It's something I can only do when I work outside of the sort of standard media practices. In this case, I really hope to find these people and see what has maybe shifted. And if I can't find them, if I can't find these individuals, at least I'll find the neighborhood. And I hope to find the market where this 8-year-old girl was killed and make photographs that somehow resonate with the past. and help remind us that 8 years have passed in our lives, which are fairly comfortable, like my life, but in these people's lives, the world is turned upside down. Here's a slightly lighter picture. These guys are guarding their home in Baghdad from looters. There's a wonderful stretch in Baghdad where beauty salons are the sort of the norm, and these women go to salons to get made up for their weddings, and they're very interested in fashion and this sort of glamorous sensibility. But actually, women in Iraq have been targeted by sort of militant militia groups for exposing their more secular ways of expressing themselves physically. So if they don't cover their heads, if they wear makeup, they could be targets of these militia groups. These beauty salons have been targets. Girls who go to universities have been targets, so children and women have stayed home from school. Wealthy people have stayed home because they're worried about being kidnapped. So I hope to find some of these characters again in some of the neighborhoods and revisit them. There are a couple of specific characters I hope to find. And one of them is a guy called Hisham. I usually don't use his name, but I don't think he'll repeat it. And he is a Sadr militia, Sadr militia representative. He fought U.S. troops. And I was able to photograph him and photograph his unit while they were laying IEDs and battling the U.S. military in Iraq. They wanted the U.S. military to leave. And I think it's fascinating to sort of check in with him and people like him and see how they stand now, where they stand now that the U.S. military is leaving Iraq. I'd like to know what they think about the last 8 years. So he really gave me great access to his neighborhood, and because I'm a journalist and not a soldier, I could go almost anywhere when I was there. I was incredibly lucky. I got to see all these different points of view. So I'd like to look for that point of view again, sort of inside perspective from Iraqis, so that they can speak back to us and tell us what their world looks like after 8 years after the U.S. invasion. Some of these people I think will be audio again, some I won't, but I feel like it's a valuable sort of lesson to take from them. These are some fighters that I photographed in 2004. I mean, these guys are literally battling U.S. soldiers, and that sentiment in Iraq really hasn't gone away. Now that U.S. troops are withdrawing from Iraq, and the president is talking about taking them all away, it's kind of, on the back pages of the newspapers, but in the lives of these people, it's in the center stage. So this is Louis. He's a fixer, is a term we use in journalism, and he's a translator that helped me navigate the Sunni Triangle, where some of Al-Qaeda's operatives later became really active in Iraq. And his family is particularly special to me because after the U.S. bombing, they took me home to their compound, their house in Anbar province. They gave me a place to stay, they gave me something to eat, and they gave me this wonderful, sort of relaxing time after this stressful period of the invasion. So this is in 2004. This sheikh here, this is his son, and these are his sisters and his father's previous wives. And this one man is responsible for supporting this entire family. So he's a contractor, he's a building contractor, and after the invasion of Iraq, he actually lost a lot of his building contracts to foreigners. So I don't know how they fared. I don't know if they were able to sort of make do. Here's my translator Louis in his underwear. Pretty sure I'm the only American woman journalist ever photographed an Iraqi from the Doumani clan in his underwear. And my crazy idea is I want to find him again and post him with his cousins on this riverbank in their underwear. So I hope to find a human aspect in all this and bring it back home.
What this PK format is. It's fast, it's fun, it can support a variety of topics and ways to share